This is the Wide Format Impressions broadcast.
Welcome back to the broadcast. I'm Dan Marks. Graphics installation is an essential, final part of many graphic projects, and there are two main approaches to getting installs done. One is to hire or train your own staff of installers. The other is to contract experienced independent installers. But which, or both, is best for graphics producers today? To shed some light on this choice, I'm delighted to welcome Kenneth Burns, President of Axis Graphic Installations and Capital Inc. Branding Solutions, and Pete Kuchis, President of Visucom Signs and Graphics. Ken, Pete, welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you. Glad to be
Hey,
here.
Yeah, let's start with just taking a few minutes to sort of better understand your businesses. I guess we'll start with Pete. Can you describe what your business is today and the trajectory it's followed to get there?
Today, it's about a 50-50 blend of in-house production and outside installation. And it wasn't always that way. It started out as a hobby, just had a small tabletop vinyl cutter in a spare bedroom, and I was making little signs for, actually, I was in video retail at the time, and I was making little signs for customers, whether they had a truck and they needed a magnetic sign or a little banner for a birthday or whatever. It was just a hobby. And then we started a family, didn't think that 7-day-a-week retail was going to be a good idea, raising a family. So I sold that business and went full-time into this and got into some bigger stick-on letter signs and bigger stick-on banners. And then a few years went by and the advent of printing came along and became affordable for the little guy, more affordable.
Right.
And so I started playing with that first with a resin printer. And then after the resin printer, my first aqueous printer, which was great unless you sneezed on it and then the ink just ran everywhere. But it let us do stuff that was hours of weeding in minutes. And it went from a couple signs here to larger scale. But then as that grew, I started to realize that a lot of places like to print, but they had no idea what to do when it came to installs. And when they would try it, it would be a miserable fail. And they seemed to be looking for an answer for that. I had a conversation with one of my manufacturer reps one day, and he said, "Hey, I've seen your stuff and you seem to have a pretty good grasp at it. You should look into this PDAA group because they really need more installers." And so it was a good friend. I probably shouldn't mention names here, but he was a good friend in the industry. He got me involved in it, and it was kind of a never look back situation. I got to meet a lot of people. I got exposed to a part of the industry that I never knew existed working out of my spare bedroom. And there are print shops that are doing rollouts nationwide and they need people. And so that's where it started, and with a couple customers, but it grew over time, and it grew because relationships expanded and trust was gained. And then it was like, "Hey, if you're doing this, do you think you could do this and do this?" So they would just continually stretch us, and we embraced those opportunities, and it went from there.
Okay. And how would you describe your business's core competency? What is your sweet spot?
On the print side or the install side?
Both.
On the print side, we're a small print shop. We serve a local market, but kind of on the corporate level. I mean, we got some pretty recognizable names that we work with, but it's a small core group of clients. I don't have hundreds of clients. I like to just work with a small family, and sometimes they can bite you if they all get slow at the same time. But that was the other beauty of playing both sides, because when the install side would get slow, the production side seemed to support it, and vice versa. But our core competency there, the printing, we do large format, both flatbed and roll to roll. We've got a CNC 5x10 finishing table.
And would you say most of your work is in sort of the retail space, or are you doing more vehicle graphics?
No, it's more corporate branding and wayfinding.
Okay.
In that, as well as promotional stuff, but not a whole lot of retail on our side, on the production side. On the install side, yes, that was a huge part of our, probably 75 or 80% of our install work was for retail.
Okay.
But then we've seen that grow. We've seen that change over the years as retail got tougher and tougher. I think COVID was a turning point, and we've seen what once was a thriving retail market up and down like the Gold Coast in Chicago.
Mhm.
And now it's a bit of a ghost town. A lot of people have just rolled up their rugs and left. So there's a lot less of that.
Nice to be diversified then, huh?
Well, absolutely. Absolutely. Because the corporate branding came into play, a lot more dimensional letters, a lot more uh, remodels and new builds on entire office floors. And, so that involves some polyester window films and a lot more vinyl and etch work and, oh gosh, wallpaper and larger murals and dimensional. If I didn't mention it already, so we were coaxed by our existing relationships to expand what we did. And it's not hard. I mean, if you have a general aptitude of, being somewhat mechanically inclined and, you're a person that does well putting together puzzles, or you're the guy that everybody comes to on Christmas when there's some assembly required, you can figure stuff out, to live with hand tools and laser levels, then you're okay. But the bigger part of it is realizing that the producers that we're looking for don't always have a real good grasp of the installation side of things. And so that's where honing our skills and being that expert in the field and being well-versed gives us an advantage. And I think we're going to probably touch on that in a little bit, so I won't roll out of this question.
Yeah, sure. Let's move over to Ken. Can you tell me about your business or businesses?
Sure. So I started out strictly on the installation side of things. I was working for a company out of Philadelphia back in '06, I believe. And then when the '08 crash happened, we decided to start our own business. Working for a print shop back then, we kind of got we understood that not a lot of print shops had a staff of installers.
Mhm.
So that was the niche that me and my partners went after. So we went with an installation only company, banging on the doors of shops like Pete's, small all the way up to big, until we gained a good enough following to hire on a large team, and just kind of grew organically up the East Coast. It wasn't until about 4 years ago I decided, let me try the other side of the fence.
Mhm.
And I've been printing now for about 4 years. I keep the companies completely separate, and we can talk about that a little bit later. But my general market on the installation side of things, we kind of do everything on the installation side of things. So we do rigid signage. We got the company that we started with was a transit company. So they had the transit markets all over the country. So we were putting up bus posters and train wraps and station wall murals, all temporary stuff. So that was our bread and butter for a really long time. But then, as Pete said, is the longer you're in it, the more you've got clients that start asking you, hey, you're doing this really great. Can you start doing this for us? And sure, I can pick up a drill and figure out how to get a cleat into a wall or 4 standoffs, or, and then the more you start getting into it, the more you start figuring out how many things there are out there that I mean,
Mhm.
even installation and assembly of fixtures we do now. It's just, the more a customer gets confident with your skills and your troubleshooting skills, the more they're going to throw at you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and we're in that same boat now. Is we're turning down wallpaper work left and right because pasted wall coverings are coming back like there's no tomorrow.
Mhm.
So that's some training that we're looking to get into next.
Now, what was the hook that got you sort of to cross that line and get into printing? Was there a specific opportunity, or were you just looking like Pete to kind of diversify the business?
To be honest, it was more of a curiosity. So, you know, being an installer, you get all of the good and the bad production stuff. It's all of the good and bad practice of production roll downhill to installation. And I always heard excuses. There was oh, the machine's not working right, or this or that or the other. And I just had a curiosity. I wanted to know, is it really as hard as they're making it sound, or are they just not educating themselves properly? And it's a little bit of both. And it is a challenging, production is a challenging side of the business. You are a slave to what your machines are feeling like that day. And, and I mean, the last weekend, my production manager spent the entire weekend in the shop trying to figure out why there was banding on just one material. Every other material in the shop was printing fine. But so, there's definitely challenges, but what I've learned is there's also just a lot of production companies that aren't putting in the time to get educated properly and to do the process properly and to talk and to Pete's point, to not put themselves in the installer's shoes and produce as if it's going to be installed, because that's, now that I am a producer and when I send things to installers, they immediately call me and tell me, you're an installer. I know this just by how you labeled it, how you packaged it, how you and it's just, knowing both sides of the fence, it's awesome because now you can deliver a process that works for all parties.
Yeah, I came to know both of you through PDAA, which Pete mentioned, the Professional Decal Application Alliance, which operates under the umbrella of Printing United Alliance. And going back quite a ways, when I started getting involved with PDA, it was admittedly an installation-only group. Most of the people that I talked to prided themselves on the fact that all we do is install, and I feel like that has changed. Do you feel like there are fewer strictly installation businesses out there? Does it come as more of a package deal where somebody prints and installs? Pete, what's your feeling for that one?
I don't know that I would say that there are less install-only companies, but there are more hybrids. I believe. I think that those that have just expanded like we did, but quite honestly, the push was always the printers, I think, a little fearful competition.
Sure.
We know who their clients are. We know who the contacts are. We know what material they're using. We know a lot. And if you were not of the highest integrity, you could use that in the wrong way. And I think a lot of folks were fearful of that. But, I've always said, I mean, I've got, I'm one of the older guys in this game and I've got a lot of years, and it took many, many, many years to build a reputation and trust with people that can be destroyed in seconds just by getting greedy for a minute. Right. So I'll never do that. And my clients know that. And most of the time now, I'm communicating directly with my client's client because they know I'll never cross that line. And there have been times when the client would approach me and say, hey, I have this little thing I need you to do for me. Right. And you know where they're going. They're trying to just get around one extra markup on the game. And I said, unfortunately, my relationship with you is through XYZ company. So if you need my services, you're going to have to contact them.
Yeah.
And I hope you understand. And most of the time they do. But I think going back to the question, there's a bigger advantage to being a hybrid company that also prints, like Ken was saying. Now he understands, like before it was all about me. It's all about the installer. Like shit rolls downhill and it just lands on us.
Yeah.
And we have to deal with whatever we're given. And oftentimes we're not even given knowledge of what materials were used.
Sure.
Again, because of that fear of, don't tell them too much, right? So they send something out and they say, this is a wet install. And then you get out there and you start on a wet install and right away you realize that you have a water-based adhesive and it's going to go all kinds of sideways. But we have insights. I understand vinyl a lot better, I think, than someone that only installs because I have to also manufacture. I also have to laminate. If I see something, I may understand a problem that was in the production process and have a better understanding on how I can work with it.
Now, Ken, I know you branched into printing there, and I kind of have a feeling in business that progress tends to go in the direction of opportunity. And, I think there are a lot of install-only companies out there or printing companies who say, there's an opportunity for me to get into printing or into installation to expand my offerings. Do you have a feeling? I mean, you said you keep your companies separate, but does one feed or inform the other in some way?
Yeah, I don't think that the installation company really helps the production company grow, but the production company definitely helps the installation company grow. So as an installation only company, I was only getting work from this array of clients that were producing in the areas that I had installers. Well, now I have a sales team that can go after certain things. So actually, I have a little bit more control over, if my Florida team is slow, then I can shift my production sales team to focus on Florida. If my Philadelphia's team is getting, if I see a slow horizon on the horizon, I can shift the sales focus there. So yeah, I definitely have a little more control over keeping my installation regions busy because of the sales aspect.
Printing United Alliance is the leading member-based printing and graphic arts association in North America with over 70 years of history and more than 20,000 members worldwide. We're here to support printing professionals like you with the tools, resources, and information you need to grow your business, sharpen your skills, and expand your network. Whether you're a printer, supplier, student, or educator, we've built our community to serve everyone who's passionate about the future of print. An Alliance membership is a smart, cost-effective way to stay current on the latest trends, connect with industry leaders, and give your business the competitive edge it deserves. Head over to printing.org/membership to learn more about the memberships we offer. Let's move the printing industry forward together.
So in my role with wide format impressions, I end up speaking with a lot of different graphics producers. And lately, I would say in the last couple of years, I've been surprised by the number of companies who have a team of installers on the payroll. And you say, oh, well, how many do you have? Oh, 3 or 4. Do you keep them busy? Oh, yeah, they're out all the time. They're doing stuff. It seems like a lot of some of these larger graphics production companies have brought installers in-house. So what do you think motivates them to hire instead of hiring independent installers? And what do you see as the disadvantages of doing that?
Cost. That's number one, is cost and control. An independent installer is going to cost a lot more than an hourly installer that's on your payroll. An independent installer's got other customers to handle. So maybe they're not going to be available for you on Thursday when you need them.
Mhm.
But and then consistency. If you've got your own team in-house, you can train them the exact way you want things to be done. Installer A is going to do the same thing as installer C as installer D. I think really and I think you hit the nail on the head when you said the larger shops. I think the disadvantage, you've got a lot of those shops they're not really big yet, but they're not small. And so they try to hire installers and then they just can't keep them busy full time.
Sure.
So then they're having them cut and weed to keep them busy. And then the installer's not happy because that's not what he's trained to do, or he or she's trained to do. But I think there's more positives than negatives. What do you think, Pete?
I agree with the control thing and the cost as well. I mean, everybody loves just having that hourly employee and they can send them everywhere and have control. And if they need to pull them off job A and send them to job B, they can do that a lot easier than they can with subcontracted installers. But the advantage though is building a relationship with a solid team that you can build a two-way respect, right? It's not just the producer falling in love with their installer, but it's the installer falling in love with the producer, because not everybody that we work with is a player.
Right.
Some of them, quite honestly, can be quite pompous at times and treat us like, the redheaded stepchild, and like we're supposed to jump and then there's others that have total respect and you're working together as a team, as partners, as if you were their employee. They treat you with a great deal of respect, and that goes back in return. And when they call, they get a great response, a quicker response, because you have that great synergy and your relationship. I think having the hybrid is probably a wiser way to go, because you're going to run into times when your own staff just can't keep up.
Yeah. Now, Pete, I'd like to stay with you on this, but sort of going back to PDAA, which the professional decal application. It focuses on decals, on pressure-sensitive materials, onto a variety of surfaces. And it seems that the needed skills of installers have grown beyond that. I think, Pete, you mentioned dimensional sign installation. You have things like architectural films, wallpaper, large SEG installs, whatever somebody wants to bring you out for. So for your business, your installation side of the business, what are the boundaries of the services you offer? And how has that mix changed over the last 5 years or so?
So we've probably, well, you mentioned a lot of things in there, and one of the things that's been more and more prevalent, uh, we've seen more frequently, and I just had one the other day for a fitness company, and that's the LED backlit dimensional stuff now.
Hmm.
So they want their pin mounted logos, but now they want them backlit. So now we also have become experts in fishing low voltage wire up walls into ceilings and connecting to existing power. Um, we don't have electricians on staff, nor do I want to try and work with that. So they have to provide power. Much like commercial sign installers, same thing. We'll connect to power within 6 feet of site. And we've had our clients, that same one that we just did that install for the fitness company. They were having some problems with their exterior LED or their exterior channel letters, and they wanted to know if we could help them with that. We don't do that in-house, but I have a partner that I've worked with for many years who is, I like to use the term 1099 employee more than subcontractor, because subcontractor sounds like I'm just taking the work, finding somebody to do it and marking it up. And really the farthest thing from the truth. I mean, I call them 1099 employees because we keep them really busy and
Right.
predominant. I mean, we're in many times the lion's share of their work every week. So they might as well be employees, but I don't have to worry about it during those times when things get a little slow, because they've got other opportunities and they can fill their time.
Right.
I'll send them away a week at a time on projects and they love it.
Yeah. Ken, I know you mentioned pasted wallpaper as an opportunity that you were maybe going to look into getting some training for your team on. How has your installation mix changed over the last few years?
Very similar to Pete's, except Pete will go a little bit more into areas that I won't. We're not fishing wires. That's a line that I've drawn. It's not that I don't want to be doing it. My installers don't want to be doing it, and I'm not trying to force them to do something that they don't want to do. We've tried it a few times. They didn't like it. They said, let's not do it. I follow with happy team. That's what I want. That's a line we had to draw. But yeah, we started putting ads on buses, and that has grown into all the signage things that we've talked about on this call so far. Cleats, standoff, rod and cable systems, suspension signage. We don't do anything with channel lettering. That's another line we've drawn. But one of the newer and biggest things I'd say we've added to the mix is the resurfacing films. That came to market in America maybe 7, 8, 9 years ago, and everybody thought it was going to be the boom. And it really didn't take off like everybody thought it was going to. And then about 3 years ago, I started noticing more and more contractors giving us requests. And so I took it a little bit more seriously. Actually, Pete and I went and got certified together maybe 6 or 7 years ago. In the last 2 years, we've really started doing a lot with that. So I'm about 20% of our installation mix now.
Yeah. What do you think happened to have that sort of tip into taking off?
Economy. I think, it's been a huge industry in Asia for a long, long time. And it's a pretty big industry in Europe at this point. I think the economy in America just needed to go down to a point where companies started looking at their bottom lines a little bit more. It's a hotel that's got 400 doors. That's a lot of money to replace. Now a film can do that. You'll get another 4 or 5 years out of the door. It was just an obvious
Yeah.
progression.
I talked to somebody who did, they did all the cabin doors on a cruise ship with a resurfacing film, and not to be funny, but that's a boatload of doors.
Yeah, another thing that people don't consider as well, the resurfacing films. I think the environmentalists kind of like that, because where are you going to put you still have to dispose of 400.
Sure.
Yeah.
right? And there's a cost involved there, whether they're going in a landfill or they're getting ground up to use for something, turns into mulch for your, I don't know. But yeah, the environmental part of it, I had never considered that, but one of the jobs that came our way and they said, well, yeah, we don't want to dispose of them. So if you can rewrap them, that's great. And the other ones is like hospitals and nursing homes. They need that stuff in and out. They can't be having somebody come in and refinish doors because the solvents and the odors that are involved are just not good. So there's a lot more than just the aesthetic part. I mean, there's other deciding factors that drive people to do that. And I think the manufacturers themselves have stepped up their game and said, look, we're either going to make it or break it. And they just put a big push.
So at the top end of the wide format segment, I'm seeing a lot more companies who have gotten into fabrication to produce, for instance, complex retail displays or experiential marketing pieces. Is this trend an opportunity for graphic installers with deeper skills than vinyl? And is it an opportunity to serve customers on a higher level?
1000%. It's, they are challenging and you need to have some serious troubleshooting skills and some patience, but those installers that are willing to do that and put in that extra work, the margins are a lot higher because producers understand that this is not everyday work and that it's going to take some figuring. I wouldn't allude to Pete on this because I think he does a lot more of this type of stuff than I do, but yeah, I think yes.
Yeah, what you got, Pete?
I agree. And I think that it comes to a whole new level of involvement between the installer and the producer. Meetings, discussions, maybe some input from the installers as well. Surveys are important. You never want to hear those magic 4 words. Who measured that wall? Because we actually had one where wall was an inch short and we had to stretch. We had to heat the whole panel and stretch it to fill. But yeah, the communication is key. And if you're working with the right producer, it can be a wonderful thing. But if you're working with somebody that landed a whale and really is out of their league, it's not necessarily going to be a happy party. But yeah, opportunity, that's a great opportunity. And like Ken said, the margins are bigger. And that's what's driven me away from certain parts of this market that I don't chase anymore. If my clients have a need, I'll help them. But I won't go after certain things now because it's been commoditized so much. And, I don't quote jobs by the square foot anymore. I refuse.
As we're recording this, we're less than a week away from the Super Bowl, which is coming up, and makes me think of very large scale work, like a complete stadium and, numerous surrounding buildings being a great example, where no graphics producer is staffed to provide quick turn installation right on that. So they build or hire out in a team of contractors, installers to come in waves and get this done. So 2 questions, and we'll start with Pete. Have you been part of these types of crews, and is it good work for installers?
Question 1, yes, we have. It was a challenge. It was when the Super Bowl was in Indiana, and it was similar to the weather that's been in the Midwest and the East Coast, where temperatures were sub-zero and sub-freezing for sure, and they wanted building wraps no matter what. And winds were brutal. So again, it's like, oh no, my installers in New York can put vinyl up when it's 15 degrees. What's wrong with you? You guys are just babies, and it's, well, no, let's have a conversation with the manufacturers. Films don't work. But to your question, we have had opportunities. I find it can be very rewarding. It can be very profitable if you're working with the right partner. But if somebody gets in and they're just hastily trying to throw everything together because it's so last minute and it's garbage in, garbage out, and then they hand it to us. They hand us a messed up cake and a can of frosting and say, okay, make it look pretty because the party's in an hour.
I'm getting PTSD just hearing this.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to elaborate on why?
Oh gosh. So yeah, we have done a few Super Bowls, a few March Madnesses, a few NBA All-Star games. They're awesome. Just the energy involved, getting that many installation crews together, and that's where these networks like PDA come into play. Those are the kind of projects where a client's going to call their best installation team and say, "Look, I just landed a whopper," and I know you're not going to be able to handle it by yourself, but just go out and find all the right people and make it happen. So if Pete got it, he'd call me, he'd call this guy. If I got it, I'd call Pete, I'd call this guy. And they're awesome. The energy is awesome, but they are super challenging because it doesn't matter. Nothing matters. It has to happen on this day, on this time, no matter what. And I remember I did the Super Bowl in New Orleans, and it was my client got, we're not going to talk names, but my client got the host hotels for the teams and went in there and just penny pinched everything, got the worst materials. So all night I was getting phone calls after a 20-hour shift. The vinyl's falling down. Can you go out and staple it up? Can you put thumbtacks in it? Whatever. And I called this out right when I opened the box. I said, "What were you thinking when you bought this material? This is not going to stick. This is textured wallpaper. Like, you need something with a little more bite." And so yeah, they can be very challenging, but overall, it is fun getting together with your homies all across the states and coming together on a project that you can sit back and watch on TV in a couple of days.
Pete and Ken, thanks so much for chatting with me. I think it was a illuminating discussion on installation and the opportunities therein.
Always happy to share and be involved.
You've been listening to the Wide Format Impressions broadcast. You can find more great content at wideformatimpressions.com.